we are living in an era where we talk so much about the fact that medications need prescribing, and we need to talk more about antidepressants. We need to talk about increasing the number of mental health professionals, increasing the number of psychiatrists in the world, which is all well said and done. I accept the premise that mental health problems are rising as we speak, and it is in huge epidemic proportions. And so we do need to do something about it, and for starters, take cognizance of the fact. But I suppose one of the reasons why I've always wanted to make these videos and put my thoughts out there is because I think that what gets amply spoken about are the use of medications. What gets amply spoken about is about the need of increasing psychiatrists and mental health professionals. But what doesn't really get amply spoken about is the fact that we haven't yet started examining the underpinnings of why we are having rising mental health problems. And there are certain factors in how human evolution is panning out to be, certain factors in how we've started living our lives, and in certain sense, we're all responsible for it, which is leading to this increase in mental health problems. And unless I suppose we dive straight into those underpinnings, unless we dive straight into those causations, I don't think we are ever going to be able to come up with the most prudent, the most robust solutions, and which is why it is very imperative to understand how we reached here where we have. Now, we are all aware of the biological model of mental health problems, and there is some merit in it. There is some scientific validity to it, but those models are not absolutely disprovable. They are not absolutely criticism. They're not absolutely um, robust, that they are foolproof. They are not models which give us all the answers for why we are in the midst of a situation as a humanity where mental health problems are rising. So we have to be very careful with how we come up with these hypotheses. One of the things which I feel doesn't really get spoken about enough, and we've reached here for all sorts of reasons, is that we are now finding ourselves living in more and more engaged spaces, more and more engaged places. Whether we look at our accommodations, whether we look at the offices that we work out of, because of population explosion, because of um, changes in land exposure, because of all sorts of scenarios that I don't wish to get into. Sadly, most of us find ourselves living out of these tiny boxes which do not really give us much access to nature. Often we are living in estates where there is not much nature left, really, because of the demands that rising humanity has put on the need for deforestation and the need for change of the natural landscapes. Now, we may dive into what the reasons for that are. We may dive into why we've ended up where we are ended up, and that's fair enough. There are always going to be reasons, and we could end up rationalizing those reasons, ignoring those reasons, or focusing on what next or what now. But I think we will be majorly fumbling in coming up with the best possible solutions for mental health problems unless we dive into these things. So essentially, when you look at this, that we have just gotten rid of wide natural green spaces which are full of vegetation, which are full of natural green forest covers, which are full of um, access to wide sky horizons, which are full of water bodies. There is no way that we would be having such epidemic rise in mental health problems if only we could ensure that most of the humanity had access had access to a life where they lived almost in an integrated manner with nature. And since we're not being able to ensure that for larger humanity, it is bound to lead to rise in mental health problems. You see, we humans are, at the end of the day, in certain sense of the word, animals who were born in the nature, in the raw nature as nature is, and increasingly, because of our pursuits in the direction of civilization, we've ended up getting further and further away from nature. We are now uh, It's almost a luxury to even imagine a house where you have sunlight coming into all of your rooms and natural air coming into all of your rooms. It's a luxury to have access to forest patches or biodiversity patches where which we can regularly access on a daily basis out of our homes if our home is not right there at least. And since we've ended up in a space where these places have ended up being luxury, it's no surprise that our brains are in almost a confused state, trying to make sense of the geometric angles and the concrete jungle that we find ourselves in. Um, and we could debate all we wanted to about this, that how much relevance could this possibly have, how much of this has led to the causation, what percentage has it contributed to the rise in mental health problems. But I personally have this conviction that perhaps that's a very fruitless exercise, because certain things are very instinctive to species, and we have no reason to believe that as humans we are very different from other species, and that we should not need nature and access to raw nature as much as other species do. And so I personally feel that it is not really being spoken enough at the level that it needs to be spoken about, that we aren't really doing enough about making sure that most of us do not remain deprived of nature. It's almost like a deficiency of nature that we are living in. And unless we fix that, I do not really see much hope for um, any reduction in mental health problems. We can call it all sorts. We can call it grounding therapy, ecotherapy, the role of walks in reducing stress and anxiety. We can call it all sorts. We can study it all sorts. At the end of the day, what matters is what are we doing about it? And I think this would have to happen at policy level. And sometimes it's enough as a species, as a society, as a civilization, as a group, just to have think tanks bring this up on the larger forums and have discussions about it. This is a bigger problem at hand. What do we do about it? And I'll go so far as to say that on one hand, if we have a choice of investing in making sure that we have more mental health professionals available to population, and on the other hand, we have a choice that we make more nature available to human population, I'd say we have to bet on the latter, because the latter is almost a foolproof mechanism of, if not eliminating and eradicating mental health problems, it is actually a foolproof method of making sure that the epidemic just doesn't go on multiplying itself. Yeah.